Hello, everybody. We're at GDC 2019. I'm Ben Hanson with Game Informer. This is
Ben Reeves of Game Informer.
And
Imran, also Game Informer.
Welcome. As you can see, GDC is still happening behind us. We've been here all week. We've been learning a ton at the Game Developers Conference. I'd argue I'd have like 10 very interesting things that I wanted to get off my chest and express about this show.
I have 10 interesting
Wait, how many
things
things do you have?
I would say approximately 9 to 11.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Perfect.
Ben Reeves,
Yeah.
the 10th most interesting thing you learned at
10th most
GDC
interesting
2019.
thing. We'll just dive right into it. Is that how we're doing this?
Yep.
All right, 10th most interesting thing. So I ran into the guy who created Echo the Dolphin?
Ed, what is his last name?
Ed Naziata. I'm sure I'm butchering that. I'm sorry, Ed. But he has a new game that's out called Space War Arena, which I was very skeptical going in. I'm like, I don't know, this game's not going to be good. But I was actually having a lot of fun when I was playing it. It's very reminiscent of Clash Royale, the phone game.
Now, when you say the
Supercell.
creator of Echo the Dolphin is making a new game and it's like Clash Royale, I want to jump out this building.
Sure. And I almost did when he was showing it to me. Thankfully, I didn't because I had fun. So you were controlling a space station, and it's same charge-up mechanic where you're building up energy, and then you're like playing these like ships.
Yeah.
So you're sort of fighting. So you're constantly launching ships at your opponent, and he's constantly launching ships at you, and you have like 30 different ships you can pick from.
Did he reference Echo at any point?
No.
Did you ask him anything about Echo?
I was trying to be very nice. I asked him a little bit about it. I was like, hey, you want to
What's the
talk
deal with the
more?
aliens?
He did not want to talk about it.
Okay,
But-
that's fine. That's good. That's a great choice.
Ed, call me if you want to talk about it.
If his new game is about aliens, does that mean you find dolphins later on? Is that
I
like the
didn't
plot,
even
the plot
make that
twist?
connection.
Come on,
Imran,
man.
I wish you were there.
Yeah.
Vortex Queen is in there somewhere.
gosh.
It's tough to boil things down. I think the game that caught my eye immediately, like the easiest eye catcher on the show floor, was the Indie Mega Booth. And it's like, this is exactly my type of game. It's called Sloppy Forgeries.
Oh, yeah.
It feels almost like a Jackbox game, right? Where it's a dueling game. They had two mice set up, and it's just, hey, you have 2 minutes, crude tools, make a work of art. Here's a famous work of art. Here's the Mona Lisa. Here's Starry Night. Go. Try and copy that. And then it's basically like if you remember in Super Mario Odyssey how it would have that percentage for those certain challenges about like how close you're like lining up those images of like the Goomba
Right.
and moving the eyes around. It's like that. So it's like a number, and just whoever gets the closest within 2 minutes for recreating these amazing works of art, they end up winning. And the crazy thing is the setup, they actually had a printer set up, and so they printed off
Oh, really?
my Mona Lisa,
Oh,
which
that's awesome.
That I can reasonably believe that's art.
That's cool.
thank you.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
really
also
good.
reasonably believe that's art.
Yeah. So I actually met with a mobile company called Netmarble. I was kind of like not looking forward to this because like it's mobile stuff, whatever. It's not gonna be a really interesting game.
Yeah.
They have a game called King of Fighters All Star, which is a 2D beat 'em up using King of Fighters characters. And I found out I really enjoyed. I was like, they let us go through a couple of levels.
Yeah.
It's a touchscreen based thing, so you have like the digital D-pad, and you have like the buttons for all the skills over here. And, like that's not ideal, but there's just a punch button and you combo into these special moves so easily that it was really fun.
Cool. So my number 9.
Yeah.
I went to a Paperboy retrospective
Like a
panel.
post-mortem on Paperboy? Yeah.
Like 30 years later, which, were you guys ever Paperboy fans?
I played it.
Everybody likes
Everybody
Paperboy
played
a
it.
little
Yeah.
bit.
I don't think I ever understood it.
No.
It's pretty complicated.
Yeah. But anyway, the most interesting thing with that was that Paperboy was almost 3 games. So I don't know if you remember Paperboy, it's like split up into multiple blocks.
Yeah.
And they had it all put together, but they were like, oh, maybe we should split this off into like 3 different games with like the different block types, like the different housing districts. And they almost did that, but then they decided that was a bad idea to have 3 different versions of Paperboy.
So they
scattered
reverse-
across the country.
So it's called a little bit Pokemon Red and Blue, or a little bit
I was
like
gonna say StarCraft 2.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a much better
That's
example.
Yeah, StarCraft's an interesting example. They were
Huh.
ahead of their time.
That's good. Let's see. My number 9 is I went to ultimately I learned people are really dumb. People that use apps, and just probably people inherently, because I went to this panel on Duolingo and about like how to make educational games more fun.
Oh, okay.
And they had these, she was big on A/B testing and just showing data and stats for what they're learning about people playing Duolingo, like the language learning game. And she had this example that blew my mind where she talked about how if you play the app every single day, you get a streak. And all that streak means, it means nothing else except there's a little flame icon by your name. That's all it is. and people were so upset about losing the streak, and so they added, because it's a free game, obviously, a free experience, educational game, but then if you become a subscriber and like line up for the subscription version of this game, they added a streak repair. It's just a little streak repair, so if you miss a day in your streak, you could go back and it wouldn't count, and you could still have the icon next to your name. They said their subscriber revenue went up 60% for this completely meaningless streak repair. But people are like, I need that icon next to my name. I will not give that up. And they also said simple things like just achievements when they added those to the game, and the concept of the streak to begin with. Their daily active users was just through the roof.
Yeah.
Like those types of meaningless things just floored them.
Are you going to start learning a new language now?
Absolutely.
As long as you can get the flame, though.
Yes, the language.
Without that, it's
of
pointless.
You're going to speak flame tongue.
Good.
What about you, Imran?
So my number 9 is at the Game Developer Conference Awards, or the GDC Choice, whatever. They usually have like the indie section and then like the big AAA games or whatever.
Yeah.
The indies sweeped the AAA section.
It was crazy.
Like Return of Obra Dinn won almost everything.
Celeste won Best Audio.
Yeah.
Over Red Dead Redemption 2.
Obra Dinn won Best Narrative over Red Dead Redemption 2.
That I can see.
Yeah.
Are you
But,
insane?
Yeah, it's a good story.
Oh, I'm sure it's fine.
But it was amazing to me, like, the entire, because people tend to, at that award show, like, they have the list of the nominees ahead of them, so they, like, bet and give them a money pool. Nobody got those right.
Really?
Everyone got, like, the IGF awards, and that's where they got, like, their points, but almost everyone gets, like, Red Dead for everything for those. And just everyone got it wrong.
That's so wild.
Because Red Dead didn't
God
win
Award
anything.
team was betting on Red Dead.
They were apparently very shocked, too.
Yeah.
There's a game called Supermarket Shriek that I met in Dimwood with, and I think I was telling you about this. It's like this very weird indie game where you're a man on a shopping cart with a goat, and you're like trying to race through the supermarket and do different challenges and obstacles.
Yeah.
And the way you propel yourself through those supermarkets is like the man screams and you turn left, or the goat screams and you turn the other way. Like that's how you propel.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we got it, Reeves.
This is not my my number 8 is the fact that there's a mode in the game where you can play a 2-player where with microphones where you're screaming, like each of you are screaming into the microphone to propel yourself through the shopping cart. And that
beautiful.
sounds like the funnest thing. And very ridiculous.
Yeah. For me, my next one is player unknown Brendan Green himself loves a good facial. I learned. I interviewed him at a hotel, and it was a lovely experience. And while I was setting up the camera, somehow the topic of like getting massages and like pedicures and manicures came up, and he was very into it. Like, I get massages all the time. I love facials. I love pedicures. But also, it was just fun to talk to him because last time we spoke on the podcast, the Game Informer show, he would not go on camera. And now it's like, yeah, go ahead and set up your camera.
He was the actual player unknown then.
Yes, and now he is just
very
known. And he's going out and starting a new studio out in Amsterdam to get away from PUBG, basically a little skunkworks project to get his hands dirty developing games again, which is exciting. But as I emphasized in the video, which you can watch on my YouTube channel, GameInformer.com, it just please don't take too long. Don't just use that PUBG money and just go and get high in Amsterdam for 5 years. Please, make something happen.
But 135 massage therapists drop.
Ooh, I like this.
They have to find 135. We gotta up the scale.
Yeah. He did say that he still really loves shooters. So it's not going to be Battle Royale that he's going to make, but I would put my money on making a shooter out there in Amsterdam.
It's going to be called In Your Face.
There were, on the first day, before Google had set up all the Stadia stuff,
Yeah.
there's a setup for teasing Stadia with like the little museum of gaming stuff in a corner.
Right.
But before they unveiled that, they just had Google employees standing guard outside. So it was just people in Google shirts, like looking at all the people, like the GDC people walking back and forth and just smiling, and it was the creepiest thing in the world. So I was just like sitting there like taking pictures of like, what are you doing? They're like, we can't talk about it right now. I'm like,
wait, was there like a veil over it or something?
There was a veil over
They were
it,
just
yeah.
worried somebody was going to
weird.
peek under it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I mean, it wasn't saying anything, and it was before the Google Stadia reveal anyway.
It is amazing that name didn't leak. Like, that branding is all over the show floor at GDC. There's so much signage, and I had no idea.
It's just a squiggle. As people are like,
I walked right by and assumed they already knew it existed. Stadia, I think I have that app on my phone already.
I've seen that, all right.
I met the founder of Resetera like around here, and he was
wow.
he was telling me he just like opened one of the cabinets and it was just unlocked, and he could like find Stadia stuff inside there.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. All right, what are we, number 7?
It doesn't matter. Keep flying.
So I went to a Dead Cells panel, and I liked that game a lot. And it was interesting to hear them talk about like how to make something fun and very playable. And it almost worked better if you saw it, but like there's like moments where you like would slow down the gameplay just to show like how the game is helping you play, because you'll be like a few frames after you like walk off of a ledge and then the player hits jump, they'll still jump even though they're not on the ledge anymore. Or like stuff where you're not going to make that jump, but they'll like teleport you to the ledge if you're just a few pixels
Just really
off.
subtle ways to help.
Yeah, stuff like there's an auto aim in the game too that's very subtle, you probably don't even notice it, but if you're pointing the wrong direction when you're attacking an enemy, sometimes it'll flip you to the guy because they know that like, well, you want to hit this guy.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because like that game isn't known for being like super forgiving, let's say, but it is in a way, like it's helping you play in ways that you don't notice. So that was just kind of like fun to hear him talk about like, yeah, if you want to make a game that is enjoyable, you kind of got to help the player out.
Yeah, that's amazing. For me, it's the Cadence of Hyrule game being announced, and just that bizarre idea of Nintendo teaming up and letting some indie developer use their IP. And so I had an interview, a Nindies interview with Kirk Scott, who's in that presentation, I don't know if you saw that, and I was just trying to ask him about like, what's the message for indies? Like, should they be reaching out to Nintendo? Is Nintendo going to reach out to them? Because I'm sure every Nindy out there is going to want to use Nintendo IP in their games.
Yeah.
And he just kept saying, it's very organic, there's no real process for it, please don't reach out to us. And then in his example of how stuff like this can happen is he said, you know, you might meet someone at a bar, and they may be a producer on Zelda or something, and you can start making a game together. It's very organic like that.
So when I was talking about this on Twitter, and I was saying like, hey, I kind of wonder how this happened, because like it doesn't seem like there's a lot of cross-pollination between Nintendo and Break Yourself Games.
Yeah.
I got a DM from somebody who would know, and they pretty much straight up told me, it's just that Miyamoto and Onuma are huge fans of Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Oh, really?
So they, when that game came to Switch, they apparently just got addicted to it. They're like, find these people, we need to talk to them.
Miyamoto.
Apparently.
That's so weird.
Go search every bar you can. They're out there.
That's crazy.
I would not have thought that, yeah. That's crazy.
Seems like
Wait,
a fun
was
game.
that yours?
No, that's not mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I can do mine. I played a game called Katana Zero.
Yes, great.
And that is a great, like, 2D platformer. You die in one hit. It's kind of like you have to get the perfect run for every room.
Yeah.
And, like, you do this by grabbing items and throw. It's very Hotline Miami-esque.
Yeah.
And you have to kick open doors, kill enemies, get to the next enemy before they find you, or kill enemies that are blocking you and like parrying you. And as you go through every room, which gets longer and longer and longer, you start realizing, okay, I can't do this on a perfect path unless I go this way or this way. But it opens up so much creativity for you to do that.
Yeah.
You played it as well, Hanson.
What I love about it too is like the gameplay, the action feels tight, and then I love that it's just weird. The story's going to get weirder and weirder. The more you play, like you go back home to the samurai or ninja, what is he? Samurai's apartment at night and just like watch TV, and you can see from the side perspective like his neighbors partying next to him and stuff, just making too many loud noises. You go to the therapist every morning, and that's where you get your dossier because the therapist is giving you these missions secretly. And at some point,
he's giving you injections too, and you're like, that's going to tie into the story somehow.
Yeah.
Something mysterious
And there's choices, dialogue choices.
Right.
And they can determine, like, I watched you play, and you interrupted the guy at the very end. So you're like, I'm going to kill you before you can throw yourself off the bridge or the roof. And, like, he threw himself off before you could get to him. So when I played it, I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait him out and see.
Right.
And, like, it did change the ending of that level.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
It's a much more complicated game than you think. Like, you see it and you go like, okay, some sort of Metroidvania or, like, Mark the Ninja style game, but there's so much more to it. Yeah. It's really exciting.
And, like, it looks amazing. Like, I think we talked to the developer about, like, the ways he broke the engine to make things like lighting work well.
Yeah, it's a one-man band, except for like some art assets and some of the music apparently. But yeah, he's been working on it for 6.5 years. He said the story of the game, at some point when you asked him, like, what's the story about, he made some joke about, the story of the game is basically about me losing my mind while playing, or like while making the game for 6.5 years.
Well, because I was talking to him too about that, and originally he wasn't even going to do a story in the game, but as he kept working on it, he started to like lose his mind apparently and decided to put a story in it. But it looks fun.
Yeah,
for sure.
So yeah, so my number 6 is there was an Assassin's Creed Odyssey panel where they talk about like the creation of the world and how they like dove into the history of ancient Greece to like make the game. And they actually consulted and hired a doctor, a PhD in like history, which I thought was interesting. But the most interesting like nugget out of that was like there's elevation levels in the game, and they went and researched the like flora and fauna by elevation of ancient Greece, and like that's represented in the game. So like certain planets,
A lot of reviews called that out, though.
Yeah, it was all over the place. Did they really?
No!
Oh, okay. Don't you think that's interesting?
That's crazy.
Though?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so specific.
I was like, why would you? Yeah, ever. To your point, I guess, is like, why would you even bother with that?
I know.
But it's interesting, and I appreciate now that they went to that effort.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing about GDC is you go to these panels, you see like the people stressing over these major or small decisions and like incredibly small details. We don't even really notice. But
Yes.
like if they weren't there, we'd be like, oh, this feels a little flat.
Yeah.
And I know we say it a lot, and game developers say it a lot, but going to so many GC panels definitely drives home that constant refrain of making games is nearly impossible, and it's a miracle any of them get out
Yes.
the door.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, there's so many things with a game like God of War. I went to a lot of God of War panels, and it's just like the amount of detail in those things. Anyways, for me, last night we went to a party. It was thrown by Paradox and ended up being the reveal of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
Bloodlines 2.
The last game came out in 2004, and like being in that room for that announcement, just like, hey, does anybody still have some goodwill in their hearts for this old game? And like the room was excited enough.
Yeah.
But it was a very bizarre themed party where it was like a little bit of immersive theater type of experience. So they had like actors dressed up as vampires wandering around. J.V. Gwaltney would have been very into it. And they're like little clues about like how to unlock different experiences and stuff. But then it was all themed after this fake dating app called Tinder.
Oh, nice.
Because they're vampires thinking to
They
eat us,
changed
right?
the letter.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so the guy is up on stage, the CEO of Tinder, and he's monologuing about how great it is. And then, of course, it's like, oh, there's a revolution. There's another employee within the company that's trying to tear it down from the inside. And so this drama is unfolding on the stage as these actors are going back and forth with the real history of what Tinder's all about. It's about vampires or whatever the hell. Ben Reeves yells out as they're acting on stage, he just goes, speech! Like the light confused heckle from people in that crowd was the funniest thing to me.
Yeah, that was a fun event. Like, there was a guy walking around before the speech stuff that, I'm not even exaggerating, his hair was like as long as my arm, and it was like done up in spikes, like with like crazy hair gel. And so he was like, you had to like go up and talk to him and like get a pen for the game they were playing. And it was just funny watching him walk around the room because he would turn his head and like whip somebody else in the eye. It's like he whipped me in the face at one point. Like,
You got another pin. Like basically, he's like, hey, that's how you complete these quests. Is you go talk to people and then get the secret thing, and then they gave you a little pin. And then I saw Reeves go up to this DJ, who was not a DJ at all. She was just like behind a little ledge, and there was no equipment anywhere near her. But she's like, it was bobbing her head and stuff. And I saw Reeves say something to her, and he got a pin. So then I just went up to her and I said, could I hear Inagata Davida, please? And she's like, there you go. She gives me the pin, and then Reeves like, why did you say that? Like, how did you know to say that? Like, I just randomly said a sentence, and she gave me a pin for it.
well, I was told, I don't even remember what the catchphrase was now, but like, catch them if you can, or something like that. Like, and which wasn't at all what you had said, but you still got a pin, so I don't know.
It was very silly. Yeah. Also, it was fun because on the Outer Worlds cover story trip for the Rapid Fire interview, we asked the original co-creators of Vampire the Masquerade if they'd ever want to see a sequel to the game, and here's their reaction.
Would you guys like to see a sequel?
I would. Sure. Don't we sound excited?
So I played a game that was part of the Alt Control, which is like a non-traditional control kind of game.
Yeah.
One of the finalists for the awards. It's called Hell Couch.
Oh, you played Hell Couch?
I played Hell Couch. So Hell Couch is there are lights underneath the couch of a sofa that 3 people can sit on.
A real life sofa.
An actual sofa, just like these 3 chairs right here.
Yeah.
And people will get up or sit down depending on what the lights say. So if it's red, you stand up. If it's blue, you sit down. And it will just like alternate.
It's yellow, let it mellow.
And if you once you all finish up, the couch are smoking.
What?
So that's just the way the game ends. That's how I think when everyone fails, and like the couch gets set on fire. So like underneath it, like smoke starts rising from it. So everyone's freaking out, like, what's going on? What's happening here? It's like, oh no, that's fine, but it's hilarious. It's like, all right.
Hey, and they're gonna bundle this with every copy of the game then? One couch that smokes?
I would hope so.
Okay.
They called it Couch Co-op, which is like, all right, that's a pretty good plan.
Damn it, that's good.
That is really good. I talked to a bunch of developers who are from South Africa, and they make games in South Africa. I'm like, man, what's it like making games in South Africa? Like, just kind of curious what the like development community is like there. And it's very like, it's much smaller than it is in North America. But they were saying that there's like only 700 people making games by their estimate, and they're all on this like WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
So like a bunch of developers from Africa are all in this like massive WhatsApp group, and that's how they stay connected. Which I just thought that was kind of fun. And it was fun talking to those guys about just like game development, what kind of games people in Africa are into.
Yeah, you rarely get to talk about it. Yeah.
No, yeah. A lot of FIFA, turns out.
Okay. I was shocked that at GDC 2019, God of War 2 was basically revealed. I went to
yeah.
a lot of God of War panels. There's a funny moment where Cory Barlog, creative director for God of War, he's like, all right, Q&A session, here we go. You can't ask me two things. First of all, who blew the horn in God of War? Because he's like, that's like our polar bear from Lost. We're never going to explain it. And then the other thing you can't ask me is what I'm working on now, or whether or not we're making a sequel to God of War. And he's like, nods aggressively at the crowd.
I mean, what else are they going to
I know, of course they're working on it, but it's just fun to have that kind of super soft, like, obviously we know what's going on here. And then also watched a panel from the combat designer, Jason McDonald. And at some point, somebody asked in the Q&A about, like, if they had any ideas that didn't make it into the game, and he's like, yeah, thankfully, with those scrapped ideas, thankfully, we keep making God of War games, and maybe we'll make another one where some of those ideas can get in, so... also, Cory Barlog's talk, you went to it as well, right?
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next one.
Oh, perfect. Let's just do it right now together then. He's basically just Kevin Smith, and it's like an evening with Kevin Smith at this point.
He is entertaining and hilarious in a way I did not expect.
And like, he
Has
had
he met
one...
Prince?
Yeah, he has one slide that just said E3 2016, and it was like a 25-minute story about meeting Hideo Kojima, and Hideo Kojima eating some stinky Panda Express in the backstage of E3.
And then they had to like apologize to Barlog.
What?
Like,
it's
Hideo
bizarre.
Kojima and his entourage came into a room because it was the E3 where like both Death Stranding and God of War got revealed.
Yeah.
So they like Barlog was there stressing out and freaking out about having to do the live demo for an unrevealed and thus unfinished game.
Yeah.
And while he's there, Kojima's entourage comes in, they just get around the table, then one of the Japanese men from Kojima's entourage goes over to Barlog and says, "We are about to eat Panda Express. It will stink. We are sorry."
And the room loses it. They're so like the room was on the edge of their seat, and it really felt like an evening with Kevin Smith.
Yeah,
like that's the
awesome.
best comparison I can make. Was just how loose it was.
I'm sure that panel will be up online at some point.
I hope so. Yeah.
But also, like, the reason, like, that... Remember back in that E3 conference, they had, like, the live orchestra playing all the music to every game?
Yeah.
Apparently that was his fault by a joke he made.
Wait, what? It was Cory's fault?
Yes.
Okay.
He made a joke about...
Wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah, wouldn't it be... Like, and then we had the live orchestra play us off. And then, like, apparently the Sony executives really loved it.
Oh, really?
Then
Oh, that's
everyone
funny.
had to do it at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. That's weird. He had a couple good insights too, just about how hard he had to push for some things on the game to actually make it go through. And he was talking about like one of the keys that he learned is always keep pushing and always keep selling your ideas to your team.
Yeah.
And he just was always pitching is the way he framed it. And he said the pitching continued till the end of the project. It was like selling a car and no one's buying the damn car. And he says, and that's what's effed up about it. It's like it's a very funny panel. I hope people watch it when it goes online.
They
sure.
actually did reveal one thing I long suspected that people didn't know, was that an Atreus part was cut.
Ooh, okay.
That when he got drunk and then like immediately like became an asshole,
yeah.
that Balrog was like, "No, we wanted a bigger part there, but we just ran out of money."
Yeah.
So we had to cut it, and we couldn't like ask for more resources or more time.
Yeah.
It just had to go.
I think they revealed that on an old episode of the Game Informer Show podcast, actually, if you're paying attention. But it's whatever.
I was talking to an old intern too who went to that panel, and he said that Cory like walked off into another room and just kept chatting with people for another like half an hour.
Oh my god!
And eventually, Michael, had to like leave because he was like meeting up with some other people, and it's like I don't have time to listen to Cory talk anymore. And it's like just a nonstop fount of like knowledge.
It definitely felt like God of War was still the star of the show at GDC. Like there was a moment where Dory, who's like a cinematographer for God of War, gave a presentation about just the way they manipulated the camera in that game and a lot of how they managed the one-shot camera, all that stuff. But he had an interesting moment where we just talked about the complexity of one scene. It's the scene where like Kratos brings back the magical item to Freya, and then it's the whole like, hey, back of the hand, taking Atreus' temperature scene.
Yeah.
And he just kind of like walked through this 30-second clip of how difficult it was to frame and shoot and all this stuff. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, and then, we just did 3.5 more hours of that, but it was about as difficult throughout it. And the entire room, this is like half of the presentation then, the entire room just like burst into applause. Like, it was like this very sweet moment where he got to say like, hey, thank you for noticing how hard we worked on this thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Your next one, man.
My next one is actually that vampire event we went to.
Oh, really?
I had a good time there. Although there was the one thing, like after the game was announced, they showed the trailer. Everybody was pumped for that.
Yeah.
Then they had like a couple of devs on stage, and like, all right, we're gonna be serious now. We want to talk about the game. And then everybody over by the bar just started talking. It was
I know,
super
you
loud.
couldn't hear
Like,
anything.
Who are these assholes who are like coming here to this event and like disrespecting these creators? Like, I just thought that.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go to somebody's like announcement, like be nice enough to like pay attention to that.
Yes, I guess you're right. And then the people on stage, from what I could hear, they had a funny joke about like, the day that Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1 came out was the same day that Half-Life 2 came out.
Yeah.
And they said, with Bloodlines 2, we're not worried about that happening again.
Right, Valve? Or you said something
Yeah.
about that.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. For me, I just got out of a panel discussion from Chris Remos, the composer for Gone Home. He worked on Firewatch, Idle Thumbs, if you're a fan of that. Now working on Valves, confusingly, in the Valley of the Gods. And throughout the entire presentation, he had a bunch of, screenshots from Far Cry 2 and other games that he was referencing for the design of Firewatch overall. And then at the very end, just basically his contact info, they had a new screenshot from In the Valley of the Gods. And then in the corner, the date just said 20XX for release. And previously they had said 2019. So I feel like In the Valley of the Gods got a soft, quiet delay going on here.
A Valve game got delayed?
I guess. You know what? They're actually going to wait until Bloodlines 2 comes out and then launch In the Valley of the Gods on the exact same day in 2020.
So I played a game. I was wandering around the expo hall just looking for any demos to play. There was a game in like the Chinese video game section, Chinese indie developers, called Bladed Fury. And it was a like side-scrolling beat-em-up, like plays like a vanillaware like hand-drawn kind of game.
Okay.
It was this Chinese woman going through like Chinese mythology, just like kicking or killing ghosts and gods and generals and whatnot. It was played so well. It was like a 2D Devil May Cry. I was so shocked at how well this thing played that I'd never heard of it before.
What's it called again?
Bladed Fury.
Cool, yeah. So my next one is last night we got together. We sort of did an impromptu hangout with some people, like one of the level designers, world designers for Insomniac's SpiderMan was there, and we were talking to him, and like I was talking to the Wonder Song developer at the same time. It was just interesting listening to those two guys talk at the same time, and the SpiderMan guy was like, yeah, well, there's a ton of work that just goes into like intersections and like traffic, and like traffic will stop when you're there fighting, and so I had kind of noticed that, but like I didn't think about some of like the other like crazy stuff that just like it takes for like pedestrians. They had a problem with like pedestrians would like walk and then like walk on top of hot dog carts and stuff. It was just like it's a bug that they had to like work and fix out because the way that world is built. And he was just like explaining how many man hours went into just like intersections.
That's fun.
The Wonder Song developer was like, oh my gosh, that's like my entire game. Like the work of my entire game is on this one small thing in Spider-Man. So it's just kind of fun to see like these two developers from different ends of the spectrum talking.
That's the thrill of GDC, is just seeing different developers intermingle. Like, there's a developer in a panel the other day who had worked on a bunch of like SpongeBob games, and he just happened to start talking to this person who had worked on Driver 3. He's like, Driver 3 is one of my favorite games ever. He's like, I've been meaning to ask somebody that worked on Driver 3. When you're in a certain type of car and driving around the world, are the odds of that car appearing in the city upped? And the guy that worked on Driver 3 is like, yes, because we had to load in that model of car. We can only have so many loading in at a time. So that's why, like in the old GTA games as well, like if you get in a cheetah, you're going to see so many cheetahs driving by you. Like those little tiny details are so fun. But real quick on the Spider-Man thing, my next one is I went to this presentation, a panel from Elon Ruskin. Okay. It was like a technical postmortem on Spider-Man. And it was the best panel I saw all week. I can't wait for when it finally goes on like online. I talked to him a little bit afterwards, and he said that the GDC folks say they're going to put it on YouTube hopefully soon. But he was talking about traffic a little bit there, and just he was bringing the camera out to show what the end of the Brooklyn Bridge looked like in Spider-Man, because you can't go all the way across it, obviously. So at the end, technically, it's this funny like U-turn where every car driving away on the Brooklyn Bridge turns around and just goes back towards the city.
No
technically,
way.
It's like some Sim City type of
Extremely
glitch.
useful bridge.
Something you don't really notice. But
Yeah, exactly. But he built things up for like the Q&A at the end. And he's like, all right, what questions do we have? The second question, the second the guy started to ask it, this Elon guy just went to the next slide, and it was directly addressing the puddles in Spider-Man. Because he didn't talk about it for his entire presentation.
in the first question.
Well, it was so close to the first, yeah. And he's like, all right, I did not know how this happened, we led an internal investigation, and I have for the first time ever the reveal of exactly what happened with the puddles in Marvel's Spider-Man and why they changed. It's like, originally, they were all handcrafted puddles. Then we changed them at some point to procedurally generated puddles because there was too much handcrafting to do.
Right.
That was it.
That was it?
That was it. Just before, that was the handcrafted look. And then it's eventually they turned on procedural generation, just said puddle in this area, and that's what changed the size.
Oh, that's crazy.
And the crowd erupted in applause. They were
Yay,
shocked.
finally!
But it was a really fascinating discussion. He was talking about just the difficulty, obviously, of streaming that much data in that world on the engine, which I completely forgot that it was like that engine that they used to create Marvel Spider-Man. They started creating back with Fuse. 2012's Fuse, 2013, whenever that came out. That was technically the same engine as Spider-Man, right? And just also then talking about streaming and how much detail you can go into for all this stuff. Then he also talked about just the difficulty of trying to fit everything on the Blu-ray, which I feel like we don't talk enough about in the industry, but that's a huge thing. I remember on the Uncharted 4 cover story trip, Naughty Dog's like, we have no effing idea how we're going to fit this thing down. And at some point, this guy with Insomniac, Elon, he said that with the Blu-ray, just when they first started loading stuff on there, they used 90% of the Blu-ray, and they still had to make 90% of the game. Like that level of insanity. And he showed a bunch of stats for trying to compress everything down just to get it on that disc.
Wow.
There's also fun stuff like that, a gag reel at the end showing like the funniest glitches from development, which is always fun. He showed like the selfie mode or the photo mode was made 5 months before the game shipped, and they showed like a detached camera floating around while Spider-Man's using the selfie pose, which just looks incredibly awkward and uncomfortable when you're looking at it from a different perspective. Also, there's this really cool thing of showing, he had a good line talking about cutscenes, and he says for some of the cutscenes in the game, they're not cutscenes, they're just animated loading screens. Like there's an amazing cutscene when you go from the city into Fisk Tower for the first time, where everything's just chaotic and blowing up and stuff, and he actually went to like the debug camera and flew around to actually show all of New York during that cutscene being offloaded, just so that they can then build up Fisk Tower and build the inside. Because then the cutscene transitions to Spider-Man crashing through the window and the gameplay is seamless. Yeah. But just seeing that Spider-Man go through all these motions while the camera's flying around and what's actually happening in the world when you can't see it was fascinating.
Yeah, that's cool.
Definitely check that out when it goes online.
So I went to the Tetris Effect panel because I really wanted to know more about that.
Yeah.
And it was Mizuguchi and Mark McDonald, but also they brought the gameplay designer Ishihara.
Yeah.
And Ishihara was starting to talk about like when they were making the game, they wanted to make sure it was a VR game first and foremost. But the problem is when you put that VR helmet on for a long period of time, you start not feeling great.
Yeah.
So he mentioned just offhandedly, like it was nothing. He's like, one time I put the VR helmet on and started testing the game, then I passed out and woke up 3 hours later.
What?
It was like, everyone was like, what? He's like, yeah, it wasn't a big deal.
It wasn't a big deal.
But that was what told him, yeah, we need to work on the comfort level for this thing. Because we can't have anyone passing out playing the game.
Just from Tetris. Weird.
I guess because it gets more intense, so they had to like tone things down to work on it.
The game's pretty subtle.
Yeah. But also, like, originally it was too subtle.
Oh, really?
So people would play the game, playtesters would play the game, and they'd be like, so what did you think of the Space Whale? They'd be like, Space Whale? What are you talking about? So they had to like put it just at the periphery, but not enough to like be in the way of the gameplay, but make sure you be able to notice it.
Weird.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Huh, cool. So my number 2 is also VR related. I went to this Oculus event before the Rift S was announced, and I got to play around with that, which is nice. It's a nice headset. Like it's really cool and it's comfortable. But my real number 2 is Stormland, which is the Insomniac developed game, and it's actually pretty neat. Like I had a lot of fun with it. It's like a game, you're a robot and you're exploring this world that's full of clouds. It's got like a sea of clouds, and so you can like surf along the clouds, and you have these arm thrusters, and you're basically guiding where you go with your arms. But then you can also like climb on stuff, kind of like Spider-Man, so you're like climbing all over the world, surfing on these clouds, and then there's these like cool gunfights, and it's just like the kind of experience that I want from VR that feels like a real full game.
Yeah.
Developed by a studio that makes good games. So yeah, it's cool to finally see something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. My favorite thing at GDC 2019 was just, hopefully he's not around, was just Tim Schafer hosting the GDC Awards.
He was great.
So good. We are so lucky to have somebody that funny and that good to present those types of awards. Like honestly,
Why don't you want him to hear that?
I hope he's not around.
We don't want to give him a big hand.
Yeah. No, but if you just go watch the archive version of the GDC Awards. Just go ahead, just scrub through and just watch all of his little presentations and his segues and his intros and outros. So funny. And I love just how brutal he was at times. The real brutal legend of comedy. Like opening up by saying F white supremacy, and bringing politics a little bit into it.
Which, by the way, was seemingly controversial on the internet.
Oh, was it really?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. But then beyond that, he was making jokes about Bobby Kotick from Activision being overpaid and stuff. He had a great joke when he was introducing the best VR/AR category, where he's like, for the third and final year, best VR category.
There were some of those where you're like, okay, did he write that ahead of time, or is he just ad-libbing here? Like, because there's some of those where you're like, he might just be. I mean, he is a funny guy.
I had a good look at the teleprompter, so I was able to like see that while he was doing it. He improv'd a lot.
Really?
Yeah, like a lot of that was written, but so much, like I would say maybe 60-40, honestly.
Really?
Like there were a lot of things he just went off on his own and started making jokes about.
So good. Okay, what do you got, man?
So I guess this is the favorite thing.
Yes.
I'm going to say the potential of Stadia.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know for sure, because there's a lot of flaws, and I wrote a thing already about how that input lag is noticeable in certain games, but it's not noticeable in all of them. So playing Assassin's Creed felt like playing Assassin's Creed, because that game is not instantly reactive anyway.
Right.
So there are certain genres I can see you play that game that are going to work great. And if they can convince people that, like, hey, I saw a stat not too long ago that was like, something like 30% of the modern gaming audience still just owns a 360. And like some just own a PS2. They're not upgrading to an Xbox One or PS4 anytime soon, whether it's $200 or whatever.
Yeah.
So giving them the chance to play these modern games, I know lots of people on the internet dislike this idea, but like there is potential there for certain things and for a certain audience to really get into it.
Absolutely.
And I'm eager to, I'm not cheerleading this by any means, but I want to see how far this idea goes. Like, this is the first step into what I think is going to be a way to get mass media audience into this.
Yes, I completely agree. And I understand I skipped one here, so our numbers got all off. But I'm pretty hot on Stadia. I think it's fascinating. I think it definitely has a lot of potential. It could be a revolution in gaming. We'll see. Although, I did play Doom Eternal on it. I didn't notice the input lag necessarily. Mm-hmm. What I noticed was in this setup that they had on the show floor, there was just a weird hiccup every minute and a half, just like a little jump. And it was weird because I figured if the signal wasn't keeping up, I just thought it would compress things a little bit. That's the way I saw it for Project Stream.
Right.
But it just had this hiccup, and it was never explained. The person at the booth couldn't explain the tech of exactly what was happening there. Also, the fascinating thing is I was playing it, there's a guy standing next to me, and he's like, hey, do you mind if I play? I'm like, yeah, go for it, man. He's like, do you notice any lag? I'm like, I can't really feel it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, here, give it to me. I'm a pro gamer and also a programmer. And so he's like, yep, we're looking at about a 1 to 100th of a millisecond lag. You can immediately feel the lag.
He could have just been screwing with you, though.
No, this guy was so nerdy. I absolutely believe him. Yeah.
He was a robot, I think. Yeah.
Oh, actually, now that I think about it, yeah, you're totally right. Sorry, did we skip one? You got more, man?
Yeah, so my last one was I talked to Mike Daly, who was the creator, one of the creators of Lemmings and the original GTA.
Yeah.
And it was just fun to talk to him, and he's a really cool guy who loves tech, and it was fun listening to him talk about Lemmings, and that the whole Lemmings thing started out as a argument on how small you can make a character and still make it detailed enough to recognize the animation.
Oh, the below conundrum they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they ended up with these tiny characters, and then they loved killing them, and so they made Lemmings.
That's awesome.
But one of the most fascinating nuggets I got out of this interview, and I think it's out there but not super well known, is at one point the makers of GTA were also working on a Kirby game for Nintendo.
What?
You know this? This Kirby game where you were pulling on Kirby and you would bounce all over the screen, and it was called Kid Kirby for Nintendo. But
the NES?
I think it was for the SNES.
Okay.
But it would have been around Uniracers and all that, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but Nintendo never was totally happy with it or happy with how fun it was, and so they ended up scrapping the project.
Huh.
But it's so weird that the creators of GTA almost made a Kirby game.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
That's so bizarre. Hey, GDC 2019. It was my first show. I hope we conveyed some of the excitement of the show. Hopefully you've been following GameInformer.com. We're going to have more, at least videos. I assume articles at GameInformer.com.
Yeah.
Are going up throughout probably the next
Some
week.
indie write-offs, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting stuff that's embargoed for a certain later date. So definitely keep your eye on GameInformer.com or our YouTube channel. You can always subscribe. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye.
GD, see you later.
Oh no.